Welcome everybody to Mongols. This is our Las Vegas reaction show. I am Mike. Joining with me is Josh and Mondo. Sorry, I'm all sorts of all over the place. That music's way too upbeat for the way that I'm feeling, and I'm just a cacophony of emotions right now. Josh, I noticed that you're sipping something that's clearly not a victory beverage. How have you been, my friend?
I'm doing good. I have to, unfortunately, once again, open my beverage before the podcast starts, which is never fun. Uh, but yeah, other than that, it's fine, I guess.
I mean, long time no see. You've been hitting up theme parks and concerts and just been everywhere. Give me the highlights.
Yeah, I went to Cedar Point, went to Disney World, Epcot, and Hollywood Studios. So that was like a birthday bash type thing. My mutual friend of ours, Chachi, it was his birthday, so we went to Disney for him, and then we had already planned for my birthday, which is like a couple days after his, to go to Cedar Point. So did a double header. That was a lot of fun. And then got crashed back into reality with work and the Hounds and all this. And then yeah, I was actually in Ohio this weekend visiting family. So been doing a lot of stuff outside the house, which is good.
Good, good. Mondo, how are things?
Good. I've been making a lot more, so I'm working
Nice.
on. I'm putting together a tool roll, which is really fun. Putting together some for some friends, kind of to supplement one of my hobbies, which is fountain penning. I just like pens. Don't tell anybody.
Nice.
I say on the internet. But yeah, no, I've just been getting into making some stuff. Finally getting a little bit of an area where I can actually build and put things together, set up in my little basement space. So yeah,
That's awesome. Good.
How about
Good.
yourself? What have you been up to?
yeah.
What have I been up to? Good question. I don't know. Like lots of little projects around the house here and there, dodging storms. We were supposed to go canoeing this weekend. Decided to pull out because we would be on the water at the exact same time as the thunderstorms are supposed to roll through. So, sort of had a clean slate of a weekend. We took a little road trip out to Somerset today just to drive around a little bit, get out of the house. But otherwise, yeah, just wallowing in the drudgery that is this team right now. So
You
yeah,
haven't picked up a new hobby in a long time. It's kind of
I
disappointing.
know
There for a while, you're
it's
like, "Oh, I have chickens now," and then, "Oh, I'm beekeeping now," and like I've been expecting like the next evolution, like we have llamas or something like that
well.
to happen.
Well, what you don't realize is that I'm actually testing out like 6 different hobbies, and I'm just not ready to reveal them to the world yet. So at
Gotcha,
some point
gotcha.
you'll hear about them.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, welcome to everyone who's joining us live. As Reed commented in the comment section, we did play Lost Vegas. Whether that was a Freudian slip on my part or Reed's just pointing that out. Thank you, Reed. Appreciate it. Feel free to jump into the comments, share your thoughts on this one, guys. Let's talk about it. I think my thought for this one is let's talk about the game, and then we can talk about sort of the broader context of just this road that the team is on, and sort of how do we see a path out of this, and where do we go from here. So obviously the Hounds lose 2-0 to Vegas. It was a hot night. I think they said 105 degrees, something like that. And even once the sun went down, it was still in the upper 90s. It was a late one for us here on the East Coast. Josh, give me a takeaway from this game.
Frustration reigns supreme the last handful of games with the fact that we are getting these chances and it feels like we should be getting goals, and in all intents and purposes, like they're good chances. Like heck, in this one we had a PK. Doesn't get much easier than that as far as scoring goes, and we're just not putting any of them away. I guess the takeaway out of all that is we've been having this conversation about just unlucky, it's going to be coming, it just it's building up, but at some point you got to ask yourself, is it just that we don't have strikers that can actually score, or these chances are chances, but are they actually good chances, or do we have players that are good enough to put away those chances?
Yeah. The PK was definitely frustrating because you felt like here's our chance. And listen, I love Griffin to death. I think he's a fantastic guy. That was not a well taken PK. The keeper just sort of had to fall sideways and it hit him in the chest. So there wasn't the pressure is there. I don't know how you break that pressure and you eventually get a goal, but we'll get there potentially. Mondo, give me a takeaway from this one.
Oh man, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. There's like overall, there's no reason we should be losing. Like, except for that last little bit, everything, or I guess the last little bit on both ends of the field, I would say we have perhaps like one of the most talented midfields in the league. Why is it not getting us across the finish line? We have one of the most solid defenses, and yet it's shipping a ton of goals. Like, we have all of the pieces, but the pieces aren't fitting together for some reason into like one. The puzzle is made of pieces that don't fit together. This is a defective puzzle, right? This is the way it feels. We got a puzzle and somebody jumbled up a couple extra puzzles into our puzzle, and now we're left with the pieces. It just felt, I don't want to say uninspired, but it feels like there's no, like, you can see like there. I have some positive takeaways, and one of them is like Etu was like trying to lead from the front essentially, like all game, and you could see it. You could see the frustration in his face, and you could see him gesturing and shouting and pointing, and leading from the front. And the question is like, we know it's not falling on deaf ears, but why is it not working out? Because the players themselves have said like, no, we're like this is something that's in our heads. This is something there. So the question is like, what's the problem then?
Yeah. I'm torn because I feel like part of me wants to talk about this game, and then part of me wants to just launch into, the past 7 games and talk about sort of the entire microcosm that we're having here now. I'll say a few things as it relates to this game, at least, and these are my personal opinions. We have not discussed these. I think, and we've said this before, I think some of our players just aren't good enough. I think in the past, and the announcer sort of alluded to this as well, where Lily has a tendency to pluck these diamonds out of the rough and turn them into amazing players. And that just hasn't happened this year. And these are players that, have been with us, and they're just not. Asumanu let his man run free multiple times. The second goal in particular, once again, was caught ball watching. There was another time where he gave a lazy back pass that almost turned into a breakaway that thankfully Randolph saved. He's just not good enough for a Lily system. I don't know if Kizza has dirt on Lily or what. I don't know why Kizza keeps starting. We've talked about this over and over again. Again, they're great guys. Like, I think Liz made a comment here that says we love them all, but this sucks. Like, yes, personally, we think they're great, but this is a situation where it's just not happening on the field. We all had high hopes that Sterling was going to be the next Albert Dikwa. Didn't even make the bench tonight, and so far has done nothing. So there are players that are clearly pouring their heart and soul and trying to drag the team out. You mentioned Etu, Griffin. I thought Mertz played really well tonight or last night. Randolph, it feels like this is now his spot to lose. Yes, he gave up 2 goals. The first one was sort of a double deflection. The second one was just a man running free on the back post, which shouldn't have happened. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you guys disagree with any of that? Go ahead, Mondo.
No, I was going to say I completely agree. I can't even blame Randolph for both of those goals.
Right.
Both of those goals lie squarely at the fault of the defense, I think. The deflection is just bad luck. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a bounce. Should he have been a little bit quicker on the reaction? That comes with time. I'm not going to condemn a keeper, especially at this stage in his career. And if Dick was in there, would he have made the same mistake? Possibly. If Gabby was in there, would he have made the same mistake? Also possible. Like, I can't, based on who we have, I can't say that the blame lies at Randolph's feet. for those goals.
But I will say, like, it's not like he had a good game. Randolph, like, he had a couple mistakes that we're lucky weren't goals. And that one terrible save that looked like it could have been a PK against us. That he just kind of like threw his hands in front of the player and
almost looked like he punched him.
Well, there was that one. There was two then, because the other one I'm thinking about is the one where even the announcer was like, "Oh, is this a PK?" Like, oh, they didn't call it, and they did a replay. And I can see why it would have been a soft PK, but still, it was putting himself in a position where he missed the ball and just kind of shoved the player almost. Not even shoved the player, but just like got in front of the player and tripped him up. But yeah, I and to your point about would the other keepers been better? I don't think so, but I don't think that's because he did a good job. It's because I don't think any of our keepers have been panning out that well for us right now.
Yeah, and just to sort of restate, I'm not saying that I think that Randolph is like the next Danny Vitiello. I just think that this is now his fourth start in a row, so it feels like the team has said, unless we see something atrocious, which maybe they did in this one, this is kind of yours to grow with, and so we'll see what happens.
I mean, it also seems like a thing where why not put in the most inexperienced keeper? You know, at this point we have nothing to lose, so
like, I remember at first we thought it was a statement, like, oh, he put him in to like you really to light a fire under the other two, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it's just like, well, I have my options. I think I can trust this guy the most. But and all that is kind of a side because I don't think the keepers are our issue. Obviously, you can't look at 0 goals in 5 games and be like, oh, the keeper's a problem. It's just the inability to get good opportunities to score, and even when we do get good opportunities, just not the skill to put them away.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to bring to attention last year at home. We were 2-0 down at half. I think it was in July. And I believe it was against a California team, if I'm not mistaken. And we came back to win that game 4-2.
Was that the Hartford game? I thought we played Hartford and we came back from behind. But maybe I'm thinking of a different one, a different time. But yeah.
I mean, it may have been. I could be very wrong which team it was. But like I remember us being down 2-0 at home, and like this was super upsetting. And they came out and we somehow pulled back and won 4-2, right? I don't see those kinds of goals in this team. And I'm going to add to that. Sterling didn't even make the bench. We've heard great things about Dragišić. We've seen him play very well in the NCAA. Why didn't he make the bench? We've seen Walty do great things for Pitt, and then I think at Rapids 2 in Next Pro. Why didn't he feature, especially after it looked like Kenny was having a hard time? Instead, it seems to be like, oh, we keep putting in the same solution and expecting a different result. And then we keep coming back on the show and saying, okay, how do we feel? And the answer is always the same, because it's just getting, it feels like Groundhog Day. We're doing the same thing and getting the same thing out of it.
Yeah, I picked a hell of a season to do like 4 to 5 episodes a week. This has just been brutal. Man. Yeah, and I will say too, my only other point from this game, you guys might have other points as well. The set pieces continue to be atrocious. There was a moment, I think it was 2 minutes in, I wrote in my notebook, where we get a perfect spot just outside the 18, and we decide to do a quick take that basically went absolutely nowhere. And it's just there, whether it's the guys rushing it, whether it's the messaging to do the quick kicks, every set piece is going to the exact same spot, hoping that we have height in there to connect on a header, and we don't. And it's just, I know we have some trick plays that we've tried in previous games, and they've at least given us some chance to do something, but the just sail it in there and hope and pray that somebody connects on it hasn't happened, and we need to do something else.
It never feels like there's anyone at the back post. Like it's just every time there's a cross in, there's just no one home. And that's the only thing, the only trick we have in our upper sleeve is to to do the wide crosses, and we don't have a tall team. I mean,
Nope.
unless maybe we should put Dick in as a forward, and he's a tall guy.
It almost feels like we just need a holding forward.
Yeah.
Like we need. Actually, a callback to today's England game. The commentators were complaining about how far Henry Kane kept tracking back. I feel the same way watching the Hounds. Why are our strikers back amongst our defenders? At least one of them should be up front. We could break at any given time. We could, like, you know what I mean? Like, what is? And I think this is where we transition from just talking about the game to talking about more systemically. Like, it feels like almost all of our shots this game came from our midfield. How many times did Etu get all the way to the goal line and dribble it towards goal on their goal line, trying to find somebody to get open? Like, that kind of stuff just, like, we're getting in really great positions, but there's just nobody else there. There's nothing to connect to.
Not to sound like Mike again from a couple episodes ago, but naming our exes. Dos Santos would be great right now. Someone like that up top, just to turn the ball around or be up there. It was funny because the announcers did the same thing during the game. They started naming off all the previous players that left.
You're like Alex Dixon, Russell Cicerone, Albert Dequa. Yeah.
What are you doing to us?
Yeah. It's tough because, Mondo, something you said there about, our forwards tracking so far back, to me, that feels systemic. I see a lot of that watching high school soccer, where you have a lot of teams that their most talented player, they'll put it forward, but that player ends up dropping so far back into their own half that by the time they get the ball, I'm like, what are you going to do? Dribble past everybody on the team to get a goal? It's not going to happen. Like, I
almost feel like we should put Danny in the striker spot for that. Play Danny as a false nine, send him up there. It's better than him having to dribble around 9 other players to hopefully make a pass at the end of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's exactly, and case in point, going back to the Eurogate, England only beat a team 40 positions below them because they pushed their strikers up. Like, their strikers finally figured it out and stopped tracking that far back.
Yeah.
That's what turned it around for them. So maybe I'm hoping they take a little bit out of this game and it inspires them, but and I was hoping for something of a hold-up player or a target man from Sterling, and I don't know whether it's just he's not getting enough time to settle in. I don't know what the deal is, but it's just
I think that Sterling is just a different player than what we were expecting. I think that we saw the name, we saw the highlights from League One, and all of us sort of thought that he was a Dequa replacement, and he's not. Like, I think we've all sort of theorized, and we just haven't seen him in that position yet, as him as like a number 10, where he plays behind a striker. And so he can sort of get the ball, lift his head up, see the players making the runs and feeding the passes. And if the back line backs off because you have the forwards pressing, then he has some space to dribble and he can shoot. But he is not the lone hold-up guy that's going to beat 2 defenders up the middle and make something happen. That's just not where he is.
I mean, in that case, all the more reason our striker should be up there. All the more reason we should have, like, I mean, I was actually hoping we would see Sterling and Musa in this game because I feel like they have complementary skill sets, and I'll probably be waiting for a while to see that. But
we don't even know why Sterling wasn't there. Like, was it a situation where it was injury? We don't, that goes back to our beating that drum of not knowing what the heck's going on with the team health wise.
I mean,
so guys, let's talk for a second just about this bigger picture thing, because I want to have a broader conversation where I'm not saying Lily out. In the past, we've joked like, oh, is it Lily out time? I'm not saying that it's Lily out time, but I think that when you look at all of the problems that the team is having, you have to start questioning, how is the team going to get out of this? And for a while, it felt like we were seeing the team progress and all of the things were sort of moving in the right direction. And all that was missing was the ball going in the back of the net. We're hitting the post, we're inches away. And now it feels like we're regressing. And I think after last week where they had 3 games in a row, we gave them a lot of pass where it was like, okay, lots of games. You're trying to manage the game to get a draw against North Carolina. That's okay. This was a case where they had an entire week off. They're going to play a Las Vegas team that isn't good. And we still end up losing 2-0. And the only shots that we got on net that the keeper really had to save were the PK. So that's just not good enough. So that made me think, just in the broader picture, in your mind, at this point, is it acceptable for the Hounds to not make the playoffs this year, Josh? We are now halfway through the season. Is it actually? Let's do this too. Before you answer, I did bring with me the latest Eastern standings. So I'm putting the latest Eastern standings on the screen right now. We currently sit in 11th place with 15 points. The only team worse than us is Miami, shocker, with 8 points. We are still only 3 points out of a playoff spot. And that's going to be the thing that everyone keeps saying. Yes, but we're only 3 points out of a playoff spot, which is fine. At this point, I just want a goal. I don't even want to win. I just want a goal. Like, show me there's some sign of life. So the way things are standing right now, we are officially halfway through the season. Josh, is it acceptable this season for the Hounds to not make the playoffs for you?
I don't think it matters where we're at in the season. It's not acceptable for us not to make the playoffs. Like it's like that is the expectation and the goal, obviously. And if that's not happening, then something needs to change, because that is like the bar is so low. Like, we have not had a goal in 5 games and we're still only 3 points outside the playoffs. It tells you that it's not hard to get to the playoffs. This league makes it very, very easy to get into the playoffs. So, like, it's not acceptable. Like, we have to get to the playoffs. And if we don't, then that's when I feel like the conversation starts happening. And people are already having the conversation. I get it. And it's, we're probably going to have the conversation. But it's to the point where, like, the playoffs is the bar you have to jump. That is it. Like, if you make the playoffs, then I feel like that's the bottom of what the expectations are.
There's going to be a second part to that question, but Mondo, I just want to get your take as well. Is it acceptable for the Hounds not to make the playoffs this year?
Absolutely not. It's not acceptable.
Okay.
It is never acceptable. This would be an entirely different conversation if there was something like a draft, or there was a reason where not making the playoffs would be advantageous for us going into next year. There is no reason that is advantageous. Payout wise, for league placement, literally everything, the higher we are, the better. The further we get, the better. It is not acceptable to not make the playoffs.
So here's part 2 of that question. If it's not acceptable for us to make the playoffs, are we in a situation where we ride out the rest of the season and then we say we didn't make the playoffs, that's not acceptable? Or do we do everything we can to make sure that we make the playoffs this year? Josh, where do you sit on that?
So I feel, and maybe it is a little bit just, I don't even know what to call it, but I feel like Lily has earned the right to see this out and to right the ship. Like, he has enough cachet with his club. He has enough of a record. Like, he doesn't miss the playoffs. And I know this year is looking pretty bleak right now, but we've had other years where it looks, like we had a rough spot. Never this rough, but it was still giving him the opportunity to right the ship, because I think he's earned that, at least in my eyes as a fan. He's earned that, that leadway to right the ship. Might be sentimental, but yeah.
I was going to say, before Lily got here, we were in 13th place with Dave Brandt did not make the playoffs that season. Lily came in and we finished third, and we've been in the playoffs every single year since he's been here. So I think what you're saying holds water. Mondo, where do you stand on this? Do you think we make a change this season to try to ensure that we get into the playoffs, or do you let it play out with there being a chance that we don't get in?
I say let it play out. And so I have a different view because I don't have the same nostalgia with Bob, just being a newer fan, like paying more attention more recently. It's more of, I feel like mid-season manager changes are slapping a Band-Aid on a bigger problem. Because that mid-season change, you're expecting like that quick turnaround, and that manager it's a knee-jerk hire. It may not be a good long-term fit for the club. There's a lot of things you get with a mid-season hire that you won't get from an end-of-season hire. That's one. Number two, I think Bob's done a really good job. And I want to see if he can right the ship, because if he can right the ship, that might speak to Bob's longevity also. Is like, hey, maybe Bob deserves another year because he just we all have bad days at the office, right? And sometimes we have a bad month at the office. And this could be Bob's bad month, is he's just hit a rough patch and he just needs to work through it and everything will be fine. And, we'll be popping champagne at the end of this all. But I think, especially with how long, with his tenure, like he deserves a chance to see out the season. And he has turned around the Hounds' fortune. Like we were Hartford before Bob.
Yeah. That's sad but true.
Yeah. I think I agree with everything that you guys said. My concern is that if the goal, it feels like there is a trajectory for this club and this organization. And there's talk of expanding the stadium and we want to grow. We want to get more people in. And now we're going to have a women's team. And it feels like everything was headed on this positive direction. And what we don't know is we don't know how detrimental a season of not making the playoffs would be to that trajectory. It might be nothing. It might just be a complete blip. This could be a total lesson learned season where it's like, okay, yes, we can pull diamonds out of the rough, but players like an Albert Dequa or an Ordonez, they play a much bigger factor in the success of a team than being able to just pluck a diamond and replace them perfectly. Like it's not necessarily going to happen. So I do think that you let Bob play it out. And again, we know Bob personally. We like Bob. Like this isn't a thing, but there's a lot of stuff that comes with Bob as well, right? Like we talk about the yelling on the side of the field. We talk about how there are players that we know who have left because they did not like Bob's approach to coaching. And so if those players were still here, could we be in a different situation? Who knows? They're all hypotheticals. But I think I agree that you don't necessarily make the change midseason. My concern with that is that then we are reserving ourselves to basically just saying, this may not be the year. This may not be the year that we make the playoffs. We may, but one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is that the players just don't, there's something mentally that's blocking them from succeeding on the field. And one of the ways that you can sort of shock that system is you bring in somebody new and you do a reset. And now everybody steps their game up just a little bit more because they realize that this isn't the same manager that brought them in. They can kick them to the curb just as quickly. And so you need this up your game just a little bit. Do I think that guys are dogging it with the way that Bob is on their back? Probably not. But if we are hoping to sort of jumpstart something out of the existing players that we have, the quickest way to do it is to bring in another manager. But again, I'm saying that I'm with you guys. I don't think that we do that. But I'm also concerned that that means that we're reserving ourselves to being in this rut until we can dig ourselves out of it.
I do think, though, another aspect of this is I don't know if we learn the lessons we need to learn if we change out the manager and things go okay, we get into the playoffs, we limp through this season. Earlier I said the playoffs was the bottom of the expectations. Like that is like the bar you have to jump. And if we bring in a new manager, we get a couple of wins from the new manager, and we limp into the playoffs. Like, yeah, cool. We made the playoffs, mission accomplished. But all the issues that we've had, as far as I know, like I don't know if they all are coming from the manager or if it's just the way the organization's ran or like the way the money is distributed. Like I don't know. So like I feel like we have to allow a crash and burn to happen if it's going to happen, so that way people can see where the issues lie. And getting rid of the manager might not be the best way to do that mid-season, and then nothing changes other than the manager.
Right, because you see that all the time too in on other teams is they replace the manager, the team's unchanged, and then that manager spends the rest of the season trying to figure out his team, and then leaves anyways at the end of the season. Nothing's accomplished, and it feels even worse for the fans on the back of that, and it feels, I bet, tenfold worse for the players because they had a little bit of security, and then they went into this complete insecure spot, and then you lose good players that way. You lose really good players when they no longer feel safe at home, basically. And I'm going to add to this. I also don't want Bob to leave the Hounds organization. Even if we replace him as manager, I'd love for him to be involved in some other aspect of the Hounds because he's brilliant. Like he really is. Like he's a good dude. I'd love to see him involved at like maybe one of the youth levels and have one of the youth coaches like move up to the front office. Like that would be cool. But that's usually not the way careers move. But I would love for him to still be involved in some way because I think his intensity, his knowledge, his passion for at least this club and for soccer in general has been just awesome. And it's a great boon.
Yeah. I will say, when you look at sort of all facets of this team, and you look specifically at the last 7 games, I'm sort of going back one more than most people do, just because that's one more past where we've scored. But basically, the last 7 games date us back to May 25th against Memphis. During that time, we've averaged giving up 1.2 goals per game. That's not bad. Like in past years, people would play Pittsburgh, and if you knew that you were going to get a goal, I think that in our case, we felt okay about that. There have been years where we were giving up less than a goal, and we're like, that's fantastic. Like we knew we could get 1 goal and then sit on it, and you're fine, and that's fine. But 1.2 goals is not terrible, especially over the past 7 games. The issue is squarely that we've scored 0.14 goals per game over the past 7 games. So we just aren't scoring. And I don't know how you fix that. I mean, the announcers were talking about this is the prime time where you could try to get players from MLS to come in, just like we got Kizza last year, or I think it was last year. We got Musha Galusa from, was it Hartford? I keep wanting to say Hartford. Louisville because he was at Louisville. Then he went to Hartford. Now he's with us. But it feels like we have to make some sort of personnel change. The problem is that if it's money, that's another player that we're now paying for the season. But it's kind of like, what do you do? One of the things the announcers kept saying last night was that our expected point total, we always talk about expected goals. This is actually expected point total, is 10 more than we have. So if that's the case, I think if we had 10 more points than we have right now, I think we're still sitting in like 6th or 7th, which is better than we're at right now. But in my mind, does that frame your perception of how this team is doing at all? Or are you more, I shouldn't say rooted, because that feels like I'm trying to persuade you to a way of thinking. Do you give the team the benefit of the doubt by saying we should have 10 more points? Or do you look squarely at the points that we have and just say, this is where we're at? Josh, where do you stand on that?
Square at the points where we're at. Like I'm okay. Very much the anti hopes and dream charts and all that crap. It's just like, no, you live in reality. This is what you have. You can only say, "Oh, bad luck" so many times before I think it's just an excuse.
Mondo,
I mean, I have been toting the hopes and dreams line for a little bit, mostly because I'm hoping this is just a phase. I think that's where I'm coming from. Is so I'm basically halfway between. I have a foot in both camps. I'm indecisive, and the reason for that is not just on paper, but from the skill we've seen on the field from these players. Having 10 more points makes absolute sense. We don't have them. You can't buy stuff with money you don't have. Like that, it doesn't work like that. But at the same time, we have all the pieces then. This is saying we have the pieces. What's the problem with getting the pieces to work together? So we have all of the parts for a car engine, but for some reason we just keep putting it together wrong.
Something that kept popping into my head as I was watching this game, and this is in no way, this is a throwback to last season where we had the conversation of if you could guarantee the player shield every year and that you would beat, what was it, 2 MLS teams in the Open Cup, but you would never win the playoffs, would you take it? Thinking back now about that same situation, considering where we're at, everybody that I've talked to has said, no, you got to go for the cup. You got to, the player shield doesn't matter. You got to go for the cup. Josh, do you still feel that way?
So it's funny. I still do. I do think you have to go for the cup, but thinking about that, it is just because we've never won it. Like, if we won the cup, like in this year, let's say this year we limp into the playoffs and then we make a magical run and we get the cup. That's all people are going to remember. If anything, that makes it even a cooler story. But yeah, we barely, we came from the bottom and we worked our way up and we won the whole damn thing. Like, that would be an awesome story. But after we win it, I don't know. Player shield sounds pretty cool every year. But it's the fact that we've never won it. It's like we're the oldest, one of the longest running teams in the league, and we've never once gotten the cup. So it's just this chip on our shoulders that I desperately want to get out. So
yeah. Mondo, where do you stand on that?
Originally I was going to say I could give a crap about the shield if we could win the league, but I like what Josh said. Like, once you win it once, because to me, the most magic. So again, Chelsea fan, the most magical Champions League win, we have 2 now. The most magical one was the 2012 one, because we shouldn't have made it to the final, and we shouldn't have won the final, and we did. Like, that was magic. So yeah. I would love a Cinderella story where we shouldn't have made the playoffs and yet we did, and we shouldn't have made it to the final and then we do, and then we shouldn't have won it but then we did.
Yeah, listen, all of that is still possible. Just to sort of put things in context, the Steel Army had shared a tweet about we haven't been this down since, I think the year was 2016, they said, and then things turned around. I went back and looked. I mentioned 2017 was Dave Brandt's last season as the coach of this team, and sort of where were we 16 games into that last season, or I'm sorry, 17 games into that last season. We've now played 17 games. In Dave Brandt's last season, 17 games in, we had 20 points, which we currently have 15. We had scored 16 goals, which we currently scored 11. And we had given up 20 goals. We've currently given up 19. So the goals given up is the only stat that's better off. We ended up finishing that season in 13th place. As I mentioned, we're only 3 points out of a playoff spot. But at this point, I have zero confidence that the team is going to win until I see them score a goal, which they've done once in 7 games. So you can't, unless we're forcing own goals in some weird way, we've got to figure this out. Otherwise, I can't stay this high and keep thinking that we're going to win every single game. I just can't. And sort of looking ahead, and this is an interesting thing that the announcers brought up a little bit as well, and I'm curious on your guys' thoughts. The Hounds now have the entire month of July. They're playing at Highmark Stadium. So 4 games, each one's on a Saturday night. So they get a week between each games. We are playing Monterey Bay, which Monterey in their last 3 games, they have 1 win and 2 losses. We're playing Oakland. Oakland has 2 wins and a loss in their last 3. We're playing Hartford, who have 1 win and 2 losses in their last 3, and Loudoun, who also have 1 win and 2 draws in their last 3. Loudoun has actually been on a bit of a tear. We have 2 losses and a draw in our last 3. I think under any other circumstance, we would say we're at home. We're playing these like middling-ish teams. None of them are at the top of either of their leagues, so we should be able to get 3 points. The announcers were saying that out of a possible 12 points, they think we need at least 6, potentially 9, to kind of right this ship. You know, Justin likes to famously say that none of these games are must win because, you know, we're not on a bubble right now. And like, if we lose, we're out entirely, but you got to start winning at some point. Josh, out of 12 possible points in July, how many do you think we realistically need for you to be like happy and thinking this team is turning a corner?
I mean, oh, geez, how many do I think we need to win? 2, 3. Like, it's that bubble right there for me. As far as like, I want to build back the fort. I want Fort Highmark to be a thing again, and to realistically be a thing, and that has not been the case this year at all. But I do think we have to build back the fort and make it happen, and, you know, buckle down and at least get draws when if we're not going to score, and win. Like, was it 5 matches? 4. Yeah, at least half, win them. But so ideally,
at least 2.
Yeah, 2, get 6 points, and then ideally get 2 more points from draws if we can't win.
8 points. Okay.
Yeah.
Mondo, how do you feel about that? How many points out of 12 do you think will make you feel comfortable about this team turning a corner?
Comfortable? Comfortable or happy? Because those are 2 different names. Happy.
Happy, I won all 12, but
well,
like,
right. Okay, so I'm gonna asterisk that. So happy I won all 12, and by happy I mean confident in that we've turned the corner, we're moving up, we've, you know, whatever was wrong is in the past. I want to see all 12 points. Confident that we're moving in the right direction, or like stuff is getting solved, I would say, yeah, win 2, draw 2. So 8 points, or like the 6 to 8 point zone would be my like tepid, like, yeah, okay, I think we're moving in the right way. But I'm going to tell you right now, if we only take 3 points, that's our season.
No. Yeah, I agree.
You can't have a whole month at home and take 3 points. Like, so actually I'm gonna increase that. We can't take less than 6. If we take less than 6, then I think that's our season done. It's tough to say, but one of those teams that were actually 2 of the teams we're playing in July, Hartford and Loudoun, are the other 2 bubble teams.
Yeah. We're at the point where this is no longer just us earning points, keeping teams around us from getting points, because that's the game we're playing now. So yeah, to your point, Monterey Bay and Oakland, they're both out west. They have less impact. I mean, other than us getting points, but yeah, we need to keep Hartford and Loudoun from getting more points. If we have any hope of making this happen, this month could be magical. This could be a ramp that we hit, and this is what launches us into August. And before you know it, we're one of the hottest teams because we have all of the other pieces together. We're just not scoring. It launches us into August. We get into the playoffs. We're on fire and everything happens. In order for me to believe that, I have to see a goal against Monterey Bay to know that these guys have, you know, the tension is released and they're able to focus on things.
I mean, even for the players' sake. Sorry.
Yeah.
But even for the players' sake, we need goals.
Yeah.
Just so the monkey can get off their backs. Because I think the whole thing is, at this point, I'm starting to think they're in their own heads.
Because they absolutely are.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is they're stressing themselves out to the point. Like if we went back to just how almost carefree we were last year,
Mm-hmm.
like goals came like nothing because we were like, yeah, we'll get a goal. We have no problem with that, you know. And I think that's the underlying issue is the longer we go without scoring, the harder and harder the egg is going to be to break.
Listen, if we're talking about it, you can guarantee the players are talking about it. And I know that the players are talking about it because they've told me that they're talking about it. Like it's in their head. So the quicker that this can happen, the better it's going to be. And I think there's nothing more indicative of that of Danny's shot in the PK. He played it safe. Like he knew that this was a chance, and the last thing he wanted to do was miss it wide. So he tried to hit it as hard as he could, and it was too close to the keeper. I think if the goals are free flowing, he might feel more inclined to try something that's a little bit different because he knows that he's not throwing away an opportunity. And the guys just need to get over that. I don't know how you help them to play more relaxed, to potentially create. I mean, look, earlier in the season, there was like some crazy back heel pass from Kizza to Sterling. Was that against Louisville? It was against somebody.
Yeah.
That we were like, that's great. Like clearly they were just having fun with it. And at some point, everything tightened up and they need to figure out how to get through this.
Back up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, we are not going to solve the scoring problem. It's just not something we can do. Obviously, the team came back today from Vegas. They're going to have all week to prepare for Monterey Bay. You have, the good news that Monterey is now traveling from west to east, so they'll actually have less time to prepare by a few hours. But the best we can do is sort of encourage the guys to go, relax, try to have fun with it again. And hopefully we can see if they turn it around. Do you guys have any other thoughts just sort of on this topic of just as an organization? It sounds like where we're at, what the three of us are sort of saying on the show is as an organization, we don't think you do anything right now. You just kind of keep working at it, hoping that you can crack that egg. And even if, we only get 2 points out of the next 4 games, you're still not going to make a manager change at this point. You're going to ride out the season. And so you kind of have to ride out the season. I mean, do you guys have any other thoughts or anything else that you kind of want to add to that before we sort of move on to the last 2 points here?
Yeah, I wouldn't say you don't do anything. I think there's plenty of things that we should be expecting to see in the background. And one of those things is I don't think we have all the tools we need in the toolbox right now to make this a successful season or to turn the season around. So I expect to find the team, looking for and bringing on more players or making some personnel changes there. Because obviously what we have isn't working. So I do want to see movement from the club, just not necessarily at the head.
I'd love to see a forward and a center back.
Yeah,
at least that.
Great.
I'd love our center backs to not be injured or suspended. That would be great too.
That's weird. I don't know.
I'd like to have Biasi and Hogan actually manage to make it through a game together.
And if Hogan could not get a cut or bleed during a match, that'd be great. That'd be fun.
I mean, we appreciate him giving blood, sweat, and tears to the team, but
there's a little bit too much blood being let in at these games.
Actually, I just noticed Liz's comment about if I have someone on my radar, and I just want to throw this name out there just because it's a dream. But David Wagner of now formerly Norwich City, and the reason I mention him is because it would be nice to have some injection of European style thinking into the USL. Just as a whole, as an entire market, having that little bit of change in the USL as a whole, I think would be a big statement from the USL in the direction it wants to move. And I think that would be, so really him coming to any team in the USL would be great, but that would be the team. And he's also available right now. So, and he's American and German And so there's a lot of reasons why he could come here, and there's a lot of reasons why he probably won't. But
most of those are money, but yes.
Yeah. Money, leaving
Notoriety.
England, but yeah, I want to put the good energy into the universe on that one. Is just like a because we're seeing a lot of teams in the USL grow, and that especially with the cup coming up is amazing. That's what we want.
It's something when I talked to Robbie Mertz, he was saying that the way that the league has evolved since he got here, it used to be that you could look at certain teams and be like, we're going to go get 3 points. And you cannot do that anymore. I mean, other than Miami, honestly, like there's no other team that you can look at and confidently say, and that's from top to bottom. Like we've seen top teams lose just this past week. There were some score lines that I saw and I went, whoa, like what happened there? There are no freebies. So it's fantastic that the league continues to grow and evolve and change. And that's great. But what's most important is that we keep going with it. And I think that, being as close to this as we are, talking about this every single week, sometimes multiple times a week, it's very easy to lose sight of the fact that, oh yeah, Bob was manager of the year last year. And oh yeah, we did win the Players' Shield. We're not that far removed from being a really good team. It just feels like when you go 7 games and only score 1 goal, you're just in the crap. And so we don't like being in the crap. We want to get out of the crap. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on this, guys?
I'm good.
Okay. I want good things this week, so I think there's only so much we can beat a dead horse.
Listen, you mentioned good things. Well, I might put air quotes now that I said good things. Voting for the women's team name opens this week. It might be open right now, depending upon when you listen to this. So apparently the club have narrowed it down to 4 candidates. I'm really hoping one of them is Riverhounds. We shall see. But, starting on Monday of this week, you will be able to go to, I'm assuming, riverhounds.com. It'll be all over social media, and you will be able to vote for what you think the USLW team name should be for the 2025 season. So make sure that you go and that you vote. Hopefully it is a case where the votes are counted, or maybe they have an idea in mind and they're just sort of putting this out there as goodwill. Listen, as a fan of Aston Villa, we're all fans of European teams. We know how this works sometimes, where it's just like, yeah, this is pick one of these 2, and like they already know which one they want, and it's all just fake goodwill. Who knows?
I do not want the public to decide this. Honestly, this should be.
I don't want
soccer.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bodie McBoatface.
Yeah. Or Hound Town, if we're being honest.
Yes. I'm gonna actually be contrarian, Mike. I don't want it to be Riverhounds, and the one reason I don't want it to be Riverhounds is because I want a Super League team. Because if the Riverhounds can grow the women's game here, we can get a Super League team. The Super League team can take the Riverhounds name, and that way we don't have to rename our W League team.
I think they all should be Riverhounds. Like even the Super League team, you have Riverhounds, W League, or whatever this. I just forgot what this league's called.
It's the W League, yeah.
Okay, yeah, W League, and then Riverhounds, Super League, and then Riverhounds Championship.
I mean, I don't know if I mean, this would be a conversation that we'd have to have with Jeff, which, by the way, I keep mentioning that I want to have him on to talk about the stadium expansion. There's just nothing to talk about yet. So they know we want to talk about it. They want to come on and talk to everybody about it. There's just nothing to discuss yet. They're waiting for certain things to be cleared so that they can then actually move forward with the plans and discuss it. So that's coming. Don't worry. But I don't know if we would have both a W League and a Super League team. It might be like you have a W League team for a year or 2, and then you just sort of progress and they become a Super League team. I don't know. But regardless, I mean, I could see it all being Riverhounds as well. Reed McLaughlin just asked, what is Super League in England? No, so the Super League is the women's first division league that the USL runs. So the USL has currently, I believe, 2 tiers of women. And there might actually be some other that are developmental beneath that. But you have the USLW League, which is primarily developmental. You have a lot of college students playing in that. And then the Super League is sort of the first division league that the USL supports. It plays fall to spring. So the men's side plays spring to fall. The women's play fall to spring with a break over winter. So it's sort of like 2 seasons, kind of, sort of. We will see. They don't actually kick off until this fall. So we'll sort of see how that all shakes out. But at this point, the Riverhounds are committed to having a USLW team in 2025. But Jeff has made it clear that their ambition is higher than that. So the hope is that we'll start with a W team, and whether we have a W team and a Super League team, we have sort of the pedigree for that, especially with the success of our academy and how successful a lot of the girls and the women are that come through that. So to Liz's point, with so many college kids, having both a W and Super could work here. So Mondo, to sort of your point, it could be sort of two different names as well. So, but regardless, voting opens this week. So go and see what the names are. I'm sure that we will share the names on social media as well. Everybody can go vote. There won't be a Bodie McBoatface because the team has already whittled it down to 4. So unless, there's like an Ammo McAmmo face or something that they agreed to, that's not going to happen.
That might be the joke answer, and then it accidentally becomes
and then everybody votes for it.
Yeah. Ammo's Army FC.
Yeah. Oof. We're laughing right now, but I'm bracing myself for
24 hours is going to be very telling.
This reminds me of when we didn't see the new logo yet, and I came on the podcast, and I was like, okay, with the new Riverhounds logo, I don't want to see a puppy paw. I don't want to see a soccer ball in that logo. I really want it to be something unique and something. And then suddenly comes out, and there's a puppy paw and a soccer ball. I'm like, son of a, it looks good.
Listen, between that. And then, inevitably there's always leaks of kits, and we're like, that can't be it. That can't be it. And then it's like, nope, it is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but everyone loved it, and we felt weird. It's like, wait, what? Everyone
really
likes it? Okay, cool. All right. What do I know?
Yeah, exactly. Guys, anything else to add to this one? This feels like an old school episode. We're pushing an hour again. So
yeah, I would say, what happened to half-an-hour episodes, Mike?
I did listen. This was a heavy one. So
you invited me. I have Bob's long-winded
You're fine, guys. As I mentioned, Hound's going to be home for the entire month of July. It all starts with Monterey Bay this weekend. We will be having an insider show with Monterey supporters this week. I found 2 guys that host an Instagram show. Just an Instagram show all about Monterey Bay. They're part of the supporters group. I'm going to be talking to them tomorrow. We'll air that show on Wednesday. And then we'll also try doing our pre-gaming episode, trying to figure out who we should try to talk to from the front office or the players to get a sense of, their take on things. And so I have some ideas. We shall see. But much more to come from us, regardless of how the team is doing, just because we like doing it and it's fun and it's informative, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, make sure that, you go check out our stuff that's over on YouTube. The How to Watch Soccer continues to light up the internet that we did with John Morrissey. So go check that out over there. All of our other recent episodes post that have seemed to done better on YouTube. So, if you like that format, go check that out there as well. You could be watching this on YouTube as well. Otherwise, thanks everybody.
This book. This is a great book.
Oh, yeah, there you go. You got it too, Inverting the Pyramid. I literally have it sitting on my desk downstairs because I got it as well to read. So yeah,
it's my light reading at bedtime.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, good luck with that, man. That's a heavy book. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you very, very soon.
Later.
This is the way.